No, my favorite quote from his last podcast. It was so good. I had to write it in my notes. Um, I forget who the guest was, but the guest was talking. He's like, "There's no secret formula." He's like, "There's none because if there was a secret formula, every one of the coaches who say they have the secret formula would use it on them to become a professional athlete."
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you had a choice between being a professional athlete or someone who trains someone to be a professional athlete, which one would you rather do? You make a lot more money as a professional athlete. So why wouldn't you just use it on yourself to become a professional athlete? That's what the whole episode's about. They just poke holes in everything. Like he trains someone, and when he trains them, he tells them like, I'm not a strength and conditioning coach. Like, I'm a performance coach, and the whole purpose is to help you to get you closer to your goal. So like, if someone wants to be like an NBA player, well, what can I do to get you closer to your goal? Like, does making you the strongest player get you closer to playing in the NBA? Or does helping you improve your 3-point shooting percentage get you closer to the NBA? Like, which one? Like, shooting percentages will probably get you closer. Or like he says in the article, like if you have really big arms, like someone's gonna notice that and be like, I bet he can play basketball. So yeah, but like it makes sense. So it's all about getting you closer to what your goal is. So but making someone stronger doesn't necessarily mean that they're a better basketball player. And they use all kind of examples. They use like Giannis. Like everyone uses like Giannis as an example because he's huge now. But like he said, like, are we not allowed to talk about that fact that he got to the NBA when he was really skinny? Like he didn't lift weights until he got to the NBA.
Yeah,
So
I think it's everybody wants to, like you said, is point at one thing, and there's so many variables that go into
yeah,
it. Plus the
I mean there is.
communication side of things, like where he's talking about versus saying, "Hey, do this program," and you'll end up to being X, Y, and Z. It's more of a discussion of what exactly do you need to get improved on, and then I'll do what I can to help create that opportunity, or be honest with you and be like, "Look, I can't help you with whatever you're shooting for, and that's going to be your specific basketball coach or whatever."
Yeah, and that's the like the group of all the coaches involved having a conversation. Like if he's the performance coach, so like if he's a performance coach and they're like hiring him, then the guy who's in charge of the skill work, like they need to be on the same page. Because like at the end of the day, the skill work is more important than what he's doing outside. So if he's like, hey, listen, today at skill work, I talked to your coach and you're gonna I don't know basketball, but you're gonna do like 300 jump shots. Like that's gonna take a toll. So when you go to him for the performance stuff, he may say, listen, you did 300 jump shots today and you played pickup. You're gonna take the day off. So they had a conversation rather than just saying, all right, so this is what I've got planned for you. This is my planned workout. I don't care what you do outside of this. We're doing this workout. Like that's what we talk about all the time when people operate on islands. And when people operate on islands, there's no communication. Certain people suffer, and it's the people who really that we pay to come here to college. Our scholarship players, they get hurt because there's no communication, or professional athletes get hurt. They get paid millions of dollars, and all of a sudden they can't play. You can't have them on the court. That's an issue. High school kids, your best players are at practice with you every single day, and then they go to a private trainer in the evenings, and they come in the next day with an injury because no one talks. Then they miss games with an already hectic schedule. Like the lack of communication between all the parties is so poor. I mean, we deal with it here.
What do you think the communication and conversations are between Emma Hayes and Tuchel?
And Thomas?
Yeah. Do you think they have any? I saw a picture of them together.
At the
on
Ballon d'Or
Twitter.
Awards today. Yeah.
Which I thought was like, that's a dynamic duo. But I just wonder, do you think there's any sharing of ideas and stuff, or are they just so focused on their own crew that probably not?
I'd say they cross paths some. I listened to a podcast this morning, and it's Emma Hayes live, and she was on Ian Wright's show. I think it was from think it was from the fall, early fall, and they asked her who, because she got like pundit of the year for the summer for her work at the Euros. So they were talking to her, and they asked her like who her favorite coach was, and she said Thomas Tuchel because she loves his in-game adjustments. And then she referred to like Conte was the same way. So like I'm sure at Cobham they've crossed paths somewhere and they've had conversations. Like I don't see at Chelsea, at a club like that, you have the men over here, they never interact with the women. You have the women's team over here who never interact with the men. Like I'm sure they cross paths and they have time to talk, which to be fair would be pretty interesting to hear like how each one of them views the other person.
Yeah, I would think because the success he's having, especially like defensively, is kind of the thing people keep pointing out. And then she's
Yeah.
just got like a crew of just attackers.
And she's been building this for years because you always hear her talk about like she's developing a squad. It's not just like she's very opposite of what Jose Mourinho was when he was there, because Jose had his set lineup and he made sure those 11 to 12 players were always fit and healthy. And he very rarely rotated. And you have Emma who's building a squad and she's managing all, 26, 27 players so that when they're called upon, they can play and everyone's healthy and everyone's, top fitness.
So she rotates sometimes like her starting 11s and what have you to keep, I guess, keep them fresh too.
Yeah.
Physically and mentally. And
I mean, if you have a squad top to bottom that can compete, I mean, you're able to make those subs. That's one of the things that I looked at this year for us. I looked at teams in our conference and top teams in the nation and how many players they played in games compared to us. And, the average for the top teams, I mean, some teams played 20, 23 guys a game. Those are average.
3?
Mm-hmm.
And what was their success?
Well, they're still playing in the national tournament now.
All right, then.
So, like, on average, they played 23 guys. And, I watched some of the games and, it's a tactic. Like, with our rules, if you sub out in the first half, that's it. You can't go back into the first half. But in the second half, you can sub freely. So they would sub 4 players at a time, usually forwards and wide midfielders or outside backs that, if you're attacking the whole half, you're going to attack for 15 minutes and you have a sub coming in, it's going to attack for 15 minutes. And there's a third guy that comes in for 15 minutes. And if all 3 of those are somewhat similar, you don't lose that much production. So I looked at it and, kind of looked at it like as a way that we need to improve our bench to have more players that can do that. And also keeps things fresh. Anson does it at Carolina. He plays a 3-4-3 and he had 9 forwards. And he said, you 3 will play until you stop sprinting, then the next 3 come in. It's not a punishment. It's here comes the next wave of players. And he just rotated forwards and they pressed relentlessly for 15 minutes at a time.
I would bet as well in practice that the competitiveness intensity goes up as well, because instead of thinking, oh, it's the first 11 and a couple of dudes and I'm number 16, I'm just kind of a practice player in a way. I'm actually getting prepared for the game as well because my minutes are as important as the first 15. And like we've talked about, and even my group this past year, we struggled big time those last like 2-3 minutes of halves. So having that fresh group come in that knows they're going to crush for 15 minutes doesn't allow that drop to occur during the game.
Yeah, I remember he used a phrase once. I think it was at the convention one year, and he was like, he tells his forwards, like, if you want to play more, sprint more. Like he'll play the forwards until they stop sprinting, and then it's time for the next one to come in. So it's like, if you know there's 9 forwards and you're only going to get 15 minutes and you want to play more, it's kind of incentive like to sprint more in the game to show like I can play for more than 15 minutes at high level. I'll sprint maybe 20, and that's 5 extra minutes that I play that they don't rank them. But then the question is, which 3 would you rather be in? Would you rather be in the 3 that starts the game or ends the game?
Yeah, that is I wonder too if it changes in the second half at all, depending on
Yeah.
score or time.
Or you may have three players that play really well together, that understand each other, and you play them as a unit. Or you may have a back to 9 or back to goal 9 and two fast players on the wings, and you can play in and back and play players through. Or you just play your three fastest ones and say just press relentlessly for 15 minutes, chase everything.
And you could think most people leave, like me, for instance, leaves. I routinely just leave my back four in the entire game. But this changes. Like, I'm just thinking, man, if every 15 minutes I got three different forwards that I have to deal with who are fresh, and bring different qualities to the pitch. So once I've gotten used to the first three, like, oh, this person makes this run quite a lot, or this one's always checking to the ball. And next, you have bring another three, and they're all getting behind or
you have three
attacking off the
players.
dribble.
Yep,
that is, which does, even for the high school level, if you can build your squad up to 18, 20, and you could play that over the court, because most people don't go very deep in their bench.
Yep,
that could bode well.
And it's also a tactic. So I've talked about it with Brian Schrum a bunch because of the time study that I've been doing. So when you make this many subs in games, the clock is running and the ball's not in play.
True.
So it also is an advantage because you're putting in fresh players that can play now, but you're subbing pretty frequently. Clock's running, play stop. So it's kind of a tactic as well.
That's interesting. One that I might have to start thinking about that, because it kind of cuts down a number of times that both teams, I guess, are on the ball. But if you're high quality, like the one you're talking about, it's playing 23 dudes. Because I'm kind of thinking about my team now. I feel like the longer that they have to play or defend, we clearly drop off. But I didn't play a ton of subs, maybe 3 or 4. So, but I'm thinking, man, if I could go 18, 19, 20 deep, would be really, really nice.
Well, think about the teams that you watched play in the state final. I mean,
they
have good. I mean, like if you play that deep into the year, and you're playing 2 days a week in the semifinals and the finals, like you have to have a bench.
Well, I know for sure in the final, with Wyoming, he probably went 18 deep, whereas Bay Village only went like maybe 14. And I think it wore them, especially the second half was completely different than the first. Now, Ignatius and Centerville, I think with some of their earlier games, I think they subbed more then, because Ignatius and Centerville was like, look, man, we got 11 and 12 like dogs, and we're just going to put our best dudes out there and we're just going to go at it. And that's why I think it was a little more open and free flowing.
Yeah, I remember the year that we played in a district final. It was my second year. Yeah, it was my second year. We played in a district final. We played in an overtime game on Thursday in the semifinal, and the final was Saturday morning. And we played maybe 13 girls, but like if we had a roster of like 17, then that Saturday game becomes so much different, because then we can rotate players in. Because girls, they had a day off, and their day off was the drug walk around school, like the county's drug day. So like all the kids walked around. They walked from school down to the courthouse to support, the drug addiction. They were against it.
Yeah.
And like all my girls were out walking all day. After they played overtime game, they got to play the next day, and it's just like bad scheduling. But at the same time, like if we had a bench and a deeper squad, then that becomes a little bit more manageable. So I think benches and deep squads are key. I did a time study for us this year, and against one of the better teams we played, doesn't look great for us. But in the first half of the game, the ball was out 23 minutes and 40 seconds of the 45.
Whoa. So not even 22 minutes of actual gameplay.
Yep. And it was 0-0. And we slowed the game down. And we took our time and we completely threw them off of the rhythm. They made their subs. Their players that came in couldn't get a rhythm in the game, and we completely disrupted everything. And we were the better team. We had them. Second half comes around. We play. The ball is out 13 minutes of the 45. So it was a 10-minute
difference.
And we lost 1-0. They had opportunities to keep the ball in bounds, create more chances. There was a 7.5-minute spell where the ball didn't stop. The ball didn't go out of bounds. It wasn't a throw. It wasn't a goal kick, nothing. And they'd go down for a shot. We'd block it. They'd recycle it. And it was just 7.5 minutes of straight defending.
So when you do your, because I might look into this too. So what you literally just time the amount of time the ball's in, and then whenever it's out, keep track of that as well. And then on top of that, look at possession time and such.
Yeah, so I have a stopwatch. So I sit on the sidelines, and anytime the ball goes out of bounds or there's a foul or an offsides, anything that allows stoppage of the game, but the clock is running, I just start my stopwatch. And then when the ball is kicked, I stop it. And at the end of the half, I tally it up. And then I do the same thing at the end of the game. So I have a spreadsheet where I have the date, the result of the game, the score, our record, the opponent's record, how much the ball was out in the first half, how much the ball was out in the second half. If we go into overtime, I have overtime first half, overtime second, the total amount of the overtime played, because it's golden goal, so you may not play the full 20 minutes. And then that goes into a percentage of the overtime played. And then I have total timeout of the 90, total time played of the 90, total percentage out, total percentage played. The field, was it grass, turf? Was there ball people? Because that affects it. What was the weather like? Because that affects it. The time of the game. So we can kind of get if 1 o'clock games, we mainly play at 1 o'clock. So we have an average for 1 o'clock games. We have an average for turf games, grass games, cold games, rain days, snow games. Give an average for all those.
So if
I don't
you
know
were,
what I'm doing with any of this though. I'm
I
just
was
collecting
gonna,
data
I
to
was,
collect data.
I was just gonna say, like, I wonder what would happen if you started knowing, like, this is our ideal, this is our hot spot. If we knew that if we played, we got the game down to whatever, 40 to 45 minutes in length, or 50 to, what do you guys play, 90? So
Yeah.
that last game you had 30 minutes, that's like 60. Yeah, so you're looking at, if you had gotten it 10 minutes lower, it would have been about a 50-minute game.
Well, right now our average is we play an average of 56 minutes of the 90. That's our average. It's lower than the spring. The spring we had like 62, 63 minutes, but like we're right in that 56. And then the games that we've won, were just above that, and the games that we lost were way above that, because the teams we play do more. So like our average is 56. We lost this game. We were at 62 one game. We lost this one. We lost one where the ball was in play 45 minutes. So the team did to us what we did to the other teams. They completely slowed the game down. We couldn't handle it. We lost that one, 62 minutes there, 59 minutes. So, when the ball's in play more, we have to defend more. We're losing those games. So then we look at, maybe we need to work on defending, or we look back at those games and we find small errors that we made, and we just talk with the guys. Here's the small errors we made. And
it all kind of sounds like Raymond stuff about continuing to make soccer actions over and over and over, like maintaining, and finding that your group kind of has I'm not saying there's a wall it hits, but clearly, like you said, defending for 7 minutes straight, I don't care who the heck you are, that's going to wear you down.
Yeah, exactly. So what I've done with it is I have no idea what I'm doing with any of this information. I've talked with Brian, I've talked with Josh, I've talked with Frank, I've talked with a lot of people on like, how can we use this for something productive? And I think that I have to get 3 years of data to start to see a trend. Like, how well do we apply our game model? Like, if we apply our game model really well, is this the average? This is what we should be hitting. And then what I did with it last summer is I took our average from the season and I applied it to our summer running program. So our average last year, I think was 60 minutes from the spring. So when we went into our summer conditioning program, the average was based on the charts that we've gotten from Raymond is 4 sets of 14 minutes to do the. So like if we're doing a conditioning game, that would be the average. That should be what we're starting at. So when we come in and do our 0 point, they should be able to play 4 games of 14 minutes because that was the average amount of time we played during the season. So our summer running program, it finished on them running 4 sets of 14, and I just went backwards from that. So they worked up until that. Now, I don't know how many guys did it, but that was the thought process behind the whole thing. So, yeah, by the time they hit school, they should be their very first day of preseason should be the season average from the spring, because they ended the spring and then their whole spring and summer workout was to build them back up to the average and push forward. Now, I don't know how to test that or anything. So. Work in process.
Kind of, that's one of the pluses of the college level is you can recruit those extra dudes in different spots and what have you. Whereas in the high school level, you're kind of stuck with what you have. And then can you even go to the 18th person without having a significant drop?
Yeah, or maybe that 18th person is just like, you're just you're just giving people breaks every 4 or 5 minutes. It's like basketball. I know in basketball, there's a lot of kids that just go in for like a minute or two to get someone to break. It's a rotating sub. Like, why don't we do that in our game?
It's not, especially like you said, if you take the Anson idea of like, look, all you're doing is pressing. I just need you to go out there, and yours is more of an effort kind of focus than anything. And if we have to get something out of it,
I think it's how you word it, because you don't want them to be like a punishment, like you're getting subbed off, like, and that's one big thing that I've learned from Emma when working with girls is she never says like you never want to punish someone, like you switching teams or you getting put on the starting 11. You're not being punished because you're being dropped. She's being rewarded. It's like it's never you're doing bad. It's always the other girls. I've got to reward her. She's so good. I have to reward her. Or listen, these 3 subs that are coming in for the front 3, they're your they're the next wave. Nothing you've done badly. It's just the next wave of relentless pressing. So get your breath, and you're going to go back in, and then you're the next wave. And it's just wave after wave after wave.
That is an interesting way of putting it, because I know a couple of times you can see the body language of boys or the players when they come off, they don't understand like what, which I think I'm sure that has to be communicated by her and even Anson or whoever that's doing the, even the other one that's doing 23 players. They have to understand that, look, there's an idea or a plan behind what we're doing. I'm not just randomly looking at and going, okay, let's just sub them because they're not getting it done. Or
that's got to be communicated ahead of time so everyone knows. I remember, I forget what book it was. I read a pressing book a few years ago, and the coach talked about when he got the idea to first start pressing, and he was playing a team. It was like a U12 team or something like that. And as soon as the kickoff happened, the other team's goalkeeper said, "Make them hate it." And so, like, the whole goal was the whole team was like, they're going to hate us so much because we're going to press them nonstop. And he said they did. Every time they played that team, the goalkeeper yelled, "Make them hate us." And they pressed them relentlessly the whole game. Every kid that came in, so like, it was their identity. Like, you're going to hate playing against us every time we play you. And everyone knew that. And it was like, if I don't start, that's cool. But when I go in, they're going to hate me because I'm going to press them nonstop. And it was like the whole team's identity.
Whatever. I'd love to. It'd be cool if the time study and stuff works out to be something.
Hopefully. I have no idea what to do with it.
Because I'm kind of interested. I would love to put one of my assistants on it and let them get on huddle and start watching game film and figure out how much time. Because then the tactics of
Mhm.
subbing and some of these other things.
I
Which I
may
feel like
try to find someone out in Kansas City at the convention and just sit down and be like, here it is. Like, tell me your thoughts. How would you use it? I don't know.
you just got to find the right person.
Yeah.
So I might look at it and go, I have no idea what this is.
I mean, I've got no idea. I mean, there's so much data here, but it's useless unless unless you try to use it for something. It's like all the it's like all the GPS data. If you're just collecting data to collect it, not use it, then why are you even collecting it?
Yeah, like how can you apply it, and then how does that affect your training sessions? How does it affect recovery? Everything that you do has to be connected to what the numbers are telling you.
Yeah, it's like the last Jake's last podcast that you listened to. Like, if you're having meetings and you're going over film, it's a cognitive load. So how are you going to use that information on your players?
Yeah, that was the one thing that caught my attention. I think I mentioned to you, like on the phone or whatever, was I never really thought about the fact of like dealing with schoolwork and all that kind of stuff during the day on top of whatever, what I'm bringing just continues to add on to what the brain can handle throughout the entire, it's like a gas tank, it only can handle so much.
We don't have it. I don't even know where the notebook is. We learned that when we did Raymond's football branding course in Philadelphia for the convention one year. We took it, and that's when all that came into play. And I have notes somewhere. They're in a notebook at home. But it was like 9 hours of football branding, the cognitive load, what days you can overload the brain, what days you can't overload the brain, when should you do this, and like it was brand new stuff. And now when you think about it, and it's like it makes sense. Like we just talked about with our guys today. Our guys have like a questionnaire they're starting to fill out that I'm running, and we had 2 guys this year that every Tuesday and Thursday they had class until 4:00. We trained at 3:45, so they would come late from class, and they were miserable the first half hour every single day. They had class, they were miserable, and we just asked them why, and they hated the class. It was accounting. They hated it.
So it had like an over.
Yeah, they were overstimulated. They didn't like being there. They didn't like being late to training because they had class, but they can't help it. They didn't like the class in the first place, so they'd show up already in a bad mood. So that's a cognitive load that we never took into consideration for training, ever.
What could you, looking back at that, what could you have done differently to help them? Would you give them like, hey, you don't need to be here till X time? Or
well, we told them like, you just come straight from class. Just come straight from class. We understand you have class. And then when they got there, usually they were done. We were done with the warm-up. So I ran all of our warm-ups this year. So we were done with the warm-up when they showed up. And they would want to hop right in. And instead, I would give them the warm-up card, and they would do the warm-up. And like I just told them, like here, just take your time to do the warm-up. Like if you rush into this, you're gonna get injured. Like you're already stressed. Just take your time, do the warm-up. You don't have to warm up, then you can join. But don't put your bag down and automatically hop in because you're late and you want to train. Like, let's be smart about it. And, we had one of them hopped in early in the season and got hurt. I think he got kicked in the ankle as soon as he joined. And then, like, his legs started bothering him afterwards. He had a small muscle pull. But, like, we just told him, like, just calm down and join when you're ready. Like, it's not into the world. Don't stress more about it. Like, you're already stressed out because you're late and you're coming from a class you don't like. We just had to be smart and have a conversation with them.
Which I think
that's the hardest
anybody
part.
anybody can relate to that. Like we've been late to things and we know what our body feels like. We walk in and we're freaking like our body temperature is way up. We're like sweating. Our hands are, palms are sweaty and clammy, and we can't even think. You can't think straight. Yeah, you're just like, oh my god, you're dropping stuff everywhere. Whereas if I just took, if I had 50 minutes just to kind of walk in the hall and get a drink and kind of get my, wits about myself.
Yeah.
Which sounds like even with them, because I'm trying to think, I've had a couple guys that'll show up late because they had, I had a National Honor Society meeting and they come rushing out. And then it's like, now looking back, that was probably a bunch of information being given to them with dates, and you need to do this and we need you to volunteer for that. And now all of a sudden they're coming and they're trying to just dive right in.
Yeah.
It does change the way you think about.
Mm-hmm.
I did chuckle though, because I'm just thinking 9 hours of Raymond.
Brain overload that day.
Yeah, you talk about cognitive load.
Yeah, talking about football braining. Yeah, we
Right
experienced
there.
it firsthand. The example he gives is your brain is a balloon, and every little bit of information, stimulus just makes your balloon get bigger, bigger, and bigger until it pops, and that's when people act emotional and they snap because they can't control their subconscious thoughts, and their conscious thoughts. But like that day was.
Oh, I bet. I wonder what the psychology and of like a Simeone, who's known for like being like I'm just gonna not necessarily park the bus, but we're gonna be so freaking relentless defensively. We don't care if we only possess it for 30. Is that a different type of fitness that you have to create for them? Or like Mourinho's been known for, I will defend and then we'll counter and take our options.
Yeah, I remember there was a quote from Jose that said, "You don't have to have the ball to be in control of the game," and like it's true. Like you can be in control of the game without the ball, but like defenses win championships. I know it's like a cliche, but like all the teams that win are really good at defense, and that may be because they have the ball more. They're more, we have the ball more, so you can't. But still, at the same time, you can argue that like your offensive organization is basically like a defensive tactic because you're set up to have the ball so the other team can't score. But you can also say like we don't have the ball, so we're going to be so good defensively that you can't break us down, that when we win the ball, we can go forward and score quickly.
Yeah, I think that's that piece that's missing. Like at least for like my program is we defend really well.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't have the consistently quality of the attack to put people like, we win it and then it's 2-3 passes and then we're defending again versus we don't put people on their heels, I guess. In the
Fergus Conley,
Fergus
Conley calls it in his book, Game Changer, I think. Game Changer. He doesn't call it defense. He calls it offense without the ball.
Offense without the ball.
Because everyone says, "Oh, I'm offense. I don't play defense." And he's like, "Well, this is our offense without the ball." and it's their press, and it's their press. He's like, everyone makes defense sound so negative, so he just calls it offense without the ball. Press, offense without the ball.
Yeah, because we did much better defensively. Our organization was better, recognition like roles and positions and all that kind of stuff. But
you look at college football, like in college football, like you have so you have Ohio State, Michigan, right? So you have Michigan, and they were like, our defense is going to stop the other team. So it was like offense without the ball. Like they ran plays to stop the other team, but it was like, this is our offense without the ball. Like this is what we're going to do to stop you. This is our offense.
Not a bad way to think about it.
It's not, because if you get everyone on the same page, like, you get away from those people that are like, I don't play defense. All right, well, now we're on offense without the ball. So.
Well, someone made that post on Twitter about PSG will never win a Champions League when you have Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar, because you're defending with 8 guys.
Well, so look at United. So United is going to be very interesting the next few weeks with their new manager. The interim manager, because he presses nonstop and wants full out sprints. And they have one player on their team who does not press, and he stands high and central, and he got dropped versus Chelsea because they tried to press, they tried to funnel the ball in the middle, they pressed, and he wouldn't do that. And now you have a manager who wants to press nonstop, and he doesn't. So what happens with United in the next few weeks is going to be interesting.
Yeah, because does he have the cojones to sit him?
Yeah, well, Carrick dropped him. Well, he didn't drop him. He didn't start him. But now is the issue. It's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
that's that hard balancing act because giving that up versus that he gets 2 or 3 touches and it could be a goal.
Yeah. But for him not pressing, though, how hard does the other 10 players have to work?
Oh, yeah, because now I that big whatever that 30 yards or space that he should be taken care of.
Now,
Now the
yeah,
other two are
instead of
having to run
him,
that extra.
yeah, instead of him running 10 to press someone else has to run 20.
And goes back to what we've been talking about freshness and like utilizing subs. Like you only got whatever 3 or 5 subs at the professional level, and you got to be very smart about when you do them and who you do.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens because I mean I've had this argument with a few people. He can press. Ronaldo can press. He just chooses not to.
Well, and he makes you wonder as he's never really been expected to.
The last time he pressed was at United, his first grow, and when he was with Jose at Madrid, his first few years. Because you watch the videos of them playing Barcelona, like they press, and there's a clip. I think it's he's pressing by himself, and he gets so mad because Barca just pings it around him. But then like he scored goals. He transitioned from a winger that he was at United to a number 9 at Madrid for a bit, and then moved back out wide. And now he's still fantastic, but why press? Mid-30s, give me the ball, I'll beat someone and score a goal.
Which then makes me wonder as a coach, I know you have a philosophy, but do you, because he's such an unreal talent, do you fit your philosophy to that player and surround them with like, look, we're going to play solid behind you and then let you do your thing? Because in those moments that you get the ball at your foot at any time, it, like I said, could be in the back of the net.
Well, that comes down to all these professional coaches and how much of their egos are they willing to sacrifice? Because everyone has egos at that level. I mean, yeah. I mean, all the top coaches have egos because they're the top coaches. They've gotten there for a reason. So now it's going to be if someone big enough to put his ego to the side, or if sorry, I don't care who you are. This is how we play. You can either fit in, or the old FIFO, you can fit in, or you can leave. One of the two. Who's gonna give him first? That'll be fun. I actually talked about that with our rugby team a few weeks ago. They had a meeting for a little presentation. We talked about like the struggles. Like if you're gonna be like a good team, you have to struggle. Like it's part of it. Like not all good teams just rise straight to the top. There are struggles, and it may be games, it may be practices, it may be whatever, but eventually you're gonna struggle. And the goal is to manage the highs and lows. So like your hills and valleys aren't so far apart. They're smaller ups and downs, but continuously go up. And
yeah, I'm having some of I'm planning to do it over Christmas break is have the guys that are in college or playing at the college level to come in and just talk about the experience. Just for like the kids that are in high school now, just to hear like, here's what it was like being away from home. These are some of the things I love about college. Here's what I don't love about college. Because I want to make sure they understand too, like you have to understand the academic side, like you have to enjoy that, like the campus. So like if I'm going to go to Notre Dame College, you got to know the winters are going to be brutal. Like it's going to be snow and it's going to be freezing cold, and coaches are going to have you going to futsal or lifting sessions or whatever it might be, and you can't just dip out on those.
Yeah, I think that's big because it just gives them like a heads up, like being a college athlete is like a full-time job. So this is what it's like.
Yeah, because my boys are home. We were like, "What's the last 2 weeks been like?" They're like, "Dad, it's been so nice. We've had so much more time just to chill and relax." And they're just playing like pickup and going to the, just doing stuff on their own, playing basketball and stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't have much of that.
No, they said during the season it was like, missing classes and like, the road trips are long and riding on a bus and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's good though.
And just the level. Like, I mean, they're playing D3 and they're like that. It's still like every kid that's playing was the best on their team. So
Yeah,
the level's still, really, really good. I know they got one kid who in his high school won a soccer, basketball, and baseball state title when he was playing, and he's at a D3. I mean, the dude's a winner. So they're like, yeah, we're surrounded
yeah,
by dudes that know how to win.
yeah. So like you have to be ready for it. Like you go from being uh the biggest fish in the pond to just being another one. You have to be ready for it.
Which I think you were talking about. You even posted on Twitter how it's like it's part of the journey. How
Mhm.
just because you committed, I think that's hard for some guys or
Yeah,
players
Matt.
when they get mixed in with other people and they go, oh, I used to be able to just run the show and practice, and now it's not happening. So it's like a mental, like, how do I get through this?
Yeah, Matt. Uh, Danaher
Wolf
posted.
or
Yeah, Matt
Danner?
Danaher, but like the soccer pulse guy. But like we used to tell our girls that like when just because you committed, it doesn't mean that it's over. Like the path you're on is over, but a whole nother path is opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't get to just stop. Like it's not how this works. Like there's a lot more. There's a lot more work you have to do. A lot more work.
I think that's the big thing too, is just recognizing that you are to where you're at now, but then you have to continue to grow and develop and continue to just get after it, where other people are just going to pass you by.
Yeah, at this point, everyone's somewhat equal. I told our guys, I didn't tell our guys that. I told the rugby guys this. Like, there's always going to be a better team. Like, you're always going to find someone that's a better team than you are, and you're always going to have better players. So, you've either got to take a step forward and compete with the player who's better than you, or you just let it happen. Be happy
Yeah,
with where you're at and don't complain.
that's one of the things too. I even talked to my AD about it. Like, I feel like the Middletown program is better,
Mm-hmm.
but then every other program isn't like they're just sitting around just waiting for us to get better. They're getting better as well. So that gap is still, like,
Yeah.
we may have shrunk it, but it's still there because they're still putting in the time and they still got quality and et cetera, et cetera.
I think it was. Another good book for you to read is I think it's Above the Line, maybe.
Is that Urban Meyer?
Yeah. Have you read it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Above the Line. Yeah, Above the Line. Yeah, yeah. So in that book, the 1 year that they missed out on the playoffs when Michigan State went, he had the final rankings, and he told his guys, like, I think they finished like 10th or something. I don't know. Finished 10th. He said, according to everyone else in the country, there are 9 teams better than us. So the chase is on. The chase is on to catch those 9 teams ahead of us. And that's what they used all winter and all spring. It was the chase. 9
Hmm.
teams are better than you. So what are we doing to catch up? Because, like, I think he used it like we finished 10th. So there are 9 teams better than us. But the team that finished 9th, there are 8 teams better than them. So what do you think they're doing? So we have to chase everybody. And I think it was your Alabama won it. It's like that was the target, like Alabama. Because if we're like, we can't just be better than the team in front of us. Like, if we want to be here, it's Alabama's the standard. So we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard than Alabama because they're the best.
I think that's the cool thing too, because if you even flip it around and say, look, I'm Alabama, I'm number one, how Saban's able to continue to, like, it'd be easy. I think the people don't understand. That's the thing I recognize too, is how consistently they are at all the time, record wise, and just the quality of player. I know he gets great recruits in, but so does
Yeah.
Ohio State, Clemson. Like, Clemson had a dip this year. Ohio State just had, just the kind of the hiccup this past weekend.
Yep.
But and even Alabama, even when they struggle, like they struggled this past weekend, but somewhere like you just said, you're going to have struggles. Even the best team in the country, they somehow find a way to win.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. Like, I mean, that's what good coaches do. They constantly get guys to come in and go forward. Like, there's one thing that Sir Alex Ferguson was so good at. Like every time his team won a championship, he was looking, how can we improve it next year? If that meant selling a few players, he sold them. It was always rotating the team to keep a new group of fresh players coming in that like haven't won anything, that want to win something, and that bring that, that different energy into a locker room or to a team. It's interesting to see how they do that, because it can get draining. Like, you won a championship, now what? Like, I'm at the top.
Well, especially when you look around, like if you just look at the SEC, the carousel of coaches at all the other programs has been just like LSU's getting a new coach now. Florida just got a new coach. Like, it's a constant. And there's Nick Saban just chilling like a villain, doing his thing. Yeah. And people think he's too old, and he's changed it, the way his philosophy, how he played. It used to be really defensive. Now they'll put up 55 if they need to. They just do whatever if you want to grind it out and it's going to be a 13-10 game, we can play that. If you want to go and do run and gun like with Ole Miss and just fling it all over the place, we'll do that as well.
Yeah, all those things. It's why they're good. They know ways to motivate those guys and bring them in. Now, a lot of times for top programs like that, the lure of playing at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You come here and you play, you're going to be a professional athlete, but then you to bring those guys in and to get them to buy in and motivated to do certain things it's why they get paid the big bucks.
Well, and then it goes to the fact of, just because you have fastest guys and strong and all that kind of stuff, like that goes back to like the coaching piece, that there's more to that. Like, they're already talented when they show up. They're all 4-star, 5-star dudes, but there's another part of that equation that Saban clearly does, or like a Bill Belichick or someone like that, who they just consistently do it over and over again.
Well, what I heard Gino, the UConn women's basketball coach, talk about this once, and it's actually a really good idea. And I wish I had the capability of doing it, but he had an old VHS tape, and it was called Effort Plays. So every time he saw one of his players do something that was solely on effort, diving on the floor when they're up by like 50 points, someone hitting a three, and the girls on the bench are getting up for it. Like, all those plays he had cut, and it was just a great effort play. So one thing that he talks about, he had Diana Taurasi. She was like 4-time National Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
She's diving on the floor when they're up by 60. So when one of his players wouldn't dive on the floor because they're up by 30, he pulled him in the office and he showed him the tape. And he was just like, here's the best player ever, diving on the floor up by 60. So, like, he just shows him. But what he said was, the great thing about this is I got a whole bench of 4-star athletes that would dive on the floor. So I just put the next one in. But he's like, I know not every team has 4-star athletes all over the bench.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, but it's the luxury I have. So if you don't want to do this, then she will. And the girl next to her will do it as well. So either you dive on the floor up by 60, or the next player will, and you can take her place. But then you have to be the player who's sitting up on the bench celebrating threes up by 60, or you'll slide down the bench even more.
Yeah, the one thing I love about him is he's like, look, I understand that you're a 4-star, that you're super talented and all that stuff, but it doesn't mean I'm going to coach you differently than I'm going to coach the 12th or 15th girl on the team. Like, my expectations don't drop for you. I don't let things go. Like, kind of like we've talked about with the Duke thing, he doesn't allow some of that other stuff. That's not going to occur in his program, because he'll get rid of you.
And he's got people knocking the door down trying to come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like, you're here.
So yep. I let you here. I selected you to come here. Mm-hmm. You signed the paper. but I can as quickly send you on your way and you can go somewhere else.
Yeah, there's every girl in the country would love to play here. So you're here though, so either fit into the culture or leave, because the next girl will come in and will fit in, and we don't have to worry about her. Yeah, it's working on doing that, working on that here, working on it here.
And the problem is you want to capture as much of the info he says. You're just writing like a madman the whole time.
Yeah, that was a mistake. Writing like a madman instead of just sitting back, taking in the information. That's what you do in those classes.
You just sneak your camera in.
Yeah, right.
Your phone, and then he takes it and probably throws it in the trash or
yeah,
throws
you
you out of the room.
Yeah,
you're gone.
You're booted. You're booted from the room. You're booted from the dressing room. But like in those classes, like I've taken notes, and like more than notes is just my reflections on things, like he says. Because you sit there and you listen, and you're like, oh, that's a good point. How do you do that? And then he brings it full circle, and you're like, oh, should have knew that. I knew that was coming.
Yeah, he does have a tendency to set you up.
Yeah, I've actually said this in my head like a million times in the last few weeks. Like I have questions about things, and I'm gonna ask this question, and then the moment I'm about to ask the question, I can hear Raymond saying, "Asking the question is answering the question," and I'm like, why am I even asking? Like I know the answer, but like why am I even asking the question?
I feel like he's, not to say that there isn't more to say, but he's like pretty much like nailed it down. Like what else can you can't, you can only put so many bells and whistles on things, and he's not a bells and whistle person. So
no,
I'm just straight to like, here's what I think, and here's how it works. So with all the communication, decision making, execution, fitness, like it's that. Like what else can he?
Well, I think what he's doing is the things that he's put out there, and he's like his like, all right, so like his communication, decision making, and execution, like that objective theory, I think he is trying to make that better and improve that based on how the game is evolving. So like his original theory that he put out, in 2003 is going to be different than it is now because things have evolved. And I think that's what he's trying to do. Like whatever he has now, he's trying to improve. So I think in the football periodization book 2, the playing with your strongest team, I think he's trying to take the model he has and how can he move that forward. Because I know that he's mentioned it in his course online. So the football sprints to goal, the exercise that we've talked about, he now says it, based on the evolution of his theory and his research, it shouldn't be football sprints to goal. It should be football actions to goal. So now how can you make that closer to the game rather than just sprinting? So it should be football actions. So like how can, all of his other stuff be football actions closer to the game? And, that takes research and study. I know that he has a book with Frank de Boer, the goalkeeping book. I'm assuming in the future he's going to have a football goalkeeping course with Frank de Boer.
Well, I thought it was so funny. That's why I asked that question the other day about with Xavi at Barcelona. They won their 2 games, and everyone's like, I'm like, well, what has he done? What do you think is or is it too early? It's like, just calm down a second, people. Like, I think he's going to do great stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I'd expect his roster, if he is going to look a little bit different than what he's got right now moving forward. Bet. Like, you know what I mean? He's going to bring in dudes that fit his philosophy.
My opinion on how it's changed is he came in and set standards and rules and said, this is what Barcelona is. And if you can follow these, then you'll be a part of Barcelona. If you can't follow these, I'll find people who can be Barcelona.
Well, and then so that comes down to like the Gino example you were talking about. Like, look, man, you guys are all good, but you're going to play the way that I want you to play. And if you can't fit that mold or you don't want to put the time or the effort in, then I'm going to find the next guy to fulfill the spot.
Yeah, and it's part of it is it's what we talked about in the Barcelona DNA book that I've told you to get. You know, they have certain key values that Xavi was taught since he was like 8 years old at the academy. So he knows what Barcelona is and what it is to be Barcelona. And now that he's in charge, he's bringing those same values back. And that's what he wants.
It doesn't surprise me though that he's going to be. He was successful at the previous place. Iniesta's as having success in his, like, it's just a mindset and a way of. I mean, you see Pep has gone on and done his craziness. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the year's like for them, because there's going to be a couple of games where they're not going to play at the level, and then just to see how he deals with that.
Yeah, it's going to happen eventually, but it's going to be interesting to see how the team deals with it, because like it's a team first, it's a club first mindset and attitude.
It would be really interesting if they start going, but you said that if we played this way, it would be successful. And now we've lost 2 in a row or something. And
dude, everyone will jump over.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, so the Barcelona way is not the way anymore. And I can't wait to
get emails every Monday morning. Get your team to play like Barcelona in 10 training sessions.
Well,
those are my favorite.
Yeah, that was one of my things I was going to point out too, was on top of like, hey, look, they won their first 2, was then they've already got people sending out there like, here's the practice sessions that Xavi's, he's been doing, and here's how they played in this game, and here's how your team. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not even in the locker room. You have no idea what's being said, or any of the stuff that is going on.
Flavor of the week.
So interesting.
It always happens. It always happens like that. Oh, well, it's
always kind of fun to look at, though, just to see what the heck they think he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you always have like, I've been guilty of it. I've bought the books from the Twitter experts that have.
Yeah.
I know what Jose Mourinho does, and he's the guy writing the books located in Japan, and Jose's coaching in England. He's never been to a training session or a game. He just analyzes the games. Well, that's all good, but you don't know what he's saying to the players on a daily basis. Like, that's probably more important than anything else.
That's why those little behind the scenes ones, they did that one with Mourinho when he was at Spurs.
Yep.
And then the Manchester or the City one with Pep, like you kind of get to see where he's diagramming and moving the guys around on the board, and you can hear him when he's talking to individual players like Company and some of these, and you see like, oh man, there were some like rip sessions and the interaction between the players you miss too, because there's a different, when a company calls you out, it's different than some other dude calling you out.
So I mean, there's all things that we miss and no one sees, and
the
most important part of management, the man management and everything. Those are key.